The champagne flute shattered against the mahogany table with a sound like a gunshot, and my sister Victoria's voice sliced through the festive hum of the Greenwich mansion. "Return the $100,000 0 cents, Emily, or you'll never see Mom or Dad again." Her words hung in the air, venomous and precise, as every head in the room swiveled toward me. The glittering Christmas gala, my family's annual display of New England elegance, froze. My heart didn't race. It burned. I sat there, pinned under the weight of 20 pairs of eyes, my silk dress suddenly too tight, my breath caught in the back of my throat. This wasn't just an accusation. It was a public execution, planned and rehearsed, and my mother, Margaret, sat across from me, her gaze fixed on her untouched plate, silent as a stone. "I'm Emily Harper, and 3 nights ago, on Christmas Eve 2025, my family tried to erase me, not with a whisper but with a scream that echoed through the vaulted ceilings of our Greenwich estate. They'd been plotting this for months. Victoria, my golden child sister, and Ethan, my brother who always followed her lead. Even Mom, who I'd spent years protecting, sat complicit, her silence louder than Victoria's outburst, but they didn't know I'd come prepared. My hand slipped into my purse, fingers brushing the cool edge of a USB drive. I placed it on the table, deliberate, like laying down a winning card. No one spoke. Not yet. But the air shifted, and I knew this was only the beginning. Greenwich, Connecticut in late December is a postcard of winter perfection. Snow dusts the cobblestone driveways, and colonial mansions glow with warm lights that scream old money and older secrets. Our family's estate, a sprawling Georgian with ivy creeping up its brick facade, was no exception. I pulled my Audi into the circular drive at 6:15 p.m., the tires crunching softly against the fresh snow. Victoria's black Range Rover was parked at an angle, as if it owned the place, its chrome rims glinting under the gas lanterns. I stepped out, my breath fogging in the crisp air, a leather satchel slung over my shoulder. Inside were gifts I'd spent weeks crafting, hand-stitched journals for Mom and Dad, each page filled with memories I thought might mend the cracks in our family. In my purse, tucked beside my phone, was a folded speech, written at 2 a.m. the night before, a thank you for my parents, for the sacrifices they'd made, for the love I still believed we shared. I'd hoped it would be a moment of healing. Foolish, maybe, but hope is a stubborn thing. The porch light flickered as I approached, casting shadows across the holly wreath on the door. Before I could knock, Mom opened it. "Emily," she said, her voice flat, no trace of the warmth I remembered from childhood Christmases. No hug, no smile, just my name, clipped like a receipt. I forced a nod, stepping into the foyer. The air smelled of mulled wine and cedar, the kind of scent that should have felt like home, but instead coiled around me like a warning. The dining room was a vision from a Martha Stewart magazine. Crystal chandeliers, silver cutlery polished to a mirror shine, and napkins embroidered with gold cursive. A perfect stage for a family that played its roles too well. I scanned the table, my eyes catching on the place cards. Victoria Harper, Ethan Harper, Margaret Harper, Robert Harper, Aunt Claire, Uncle James, every name in elegant script except mine. "Where's mine?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be. Mom turned, her cashmere sweater catching the light. "Oh, Victoria said you'd prefer the corner seat. More comfortable." She gestured to a folding stool by the bar cart. No place setting, no name card, just a slab of metal meant for overflow guests. My chest tightened, but I didn't argue. I slid the stool closer to the table, the scrape of its legs against the hardwood louder than I intended. Victoria caught it, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Emily always likes to be low-key, right, sis?" she said, her laugh sharp enough to cut glass. The room chuckled. Uncle James, Aunt Claire, even little Lily, Victoria's 9-year-old daughter, who didn't know better. I forced a smile, the kind that stings behind your teeth, and sat down. That stool wasn't just a seat. It was a message. You don't belong. Dinner unfolded like a well-rehearsed play I hadn't been invited to star in. The clink of wine glasses, the hum of stories about Victoria's latest PR campaign or Ethan's tech startup, the occasional glance that slid past me like I was a piece of furniture. I focused on the centerpiece, a silver candelabra I'd given Mom years ago after Dad's first hospital stay. She'd never acknowledged it was from me, and tonight, as the candles flickered, it felt like another piece of me she'd chosen to forget. The toasts began, and Dad, Robert, stood, his glass raised, his face softened by the glow. He nodded to Victoria, who rose with the confidence of someone who'd never been questioned. Her speech was all charm, peppered with jokes about ski trips in Aspen and her humble rise to VP at her firm. The room ate it up, clapping like she'd just won an Oscar. Then it was my turn. I stood, my glass trembling slightly in my hand, and reached for the microphone on the table. I'd practiced my speech a dozen times, a simple thank you to Mom and Dad for the years they'd carried us through. I flipped the switch. Nothing. I tapped it, checked the battery. Dead. Victoria leaned over, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Oh no, Em. Looks like it's not your night," she said, her voice dripping with mock concern. The room laughed again, softer this time, some shifting uncomfortably. I folded the speech, slipped it back into my purse, and sat down. My wine glass was empty. Someone had moved the bottle to the other end of the table. I didn't reach for it. The meal ended and the gift exchange began, a Harper family tradition that always felt like a performance. I'd spent weeks on mine, a photo album for Dad filled with Polaroids from his chemo days, letters he'd written me, moments only I'd captured. I handed it to Mom, her hands slow as she unwrapped it. "Oh, Victoria, this is stunning," she said, her voice catching. I froze. Victoria looked up, her smile wide and unapologetic. "I just thought it was time to honor Dad's journey," she said, not even pretending to correct Mom. The album sat open in Mom's lap, a letter from Dad to me visible under a flap, my handwriting in the corner. No one noticed, or if they did, they didn't care. Dad's eyes flicked to mine, then away. My hands curled under the table, nails digging into my palms. It wasn't just a gift they'd stolen. It was a piece of me. That's when it hit me, sharp and cold, like a blade slipping between ribs. This wasn't new. It was a pattern etched into years of family moments. The Instagram post from our last reunion, my face cropped out of the caption. The eulogy at Dad's memorial, where my words were cut and Victoria's added last minute. The holiday cards that stopped including my name. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was deliberate, a quiet campaign to erase me, to rewrite me as the outsider, and tonight it was louder, sharper, more intentional than ever. I picked up my fork, the food on my plate long cold. Across the table, Victoria whispered to Ethan, their heads bent together like conspirators in a courtroom drama. Then she stood, her glass raised again, and the room fell silent. "I know we're all grateful to be here," she began, her voice smooth as velvet, the kind that could sell ice to a blizzard. "But there's..." Every eye turned to her, then slowly to me. My stomach dropped, not from fear but from the realization that the stool, the dead microphone, the stolen gift, they were all prelude. The real blow was coming. The lights dimmed as we moved to the living room for dessert, the same room where we'd opened presents as kids, back when Christmas meant hot cocoa and Dad's off-key carols. Now it was all tension and vanilla-scented candles that burned too strong. I trailed behind, Not out of drama, but because I couldn't bear another spotlight meant for someone else. My stool creaked as I sat, the sound swallowed by Victoria's laughter as she twirled through the room, passing out cookies with Ethan and his fiancée Claire, who wouldn't stop talking about her yoga studio in Stamford. The coffee table was piled with gifts, all wrapped in metallic paper, each tagged with names. I scanned them quickly. Nothing for me. I'd placed a gift bag under the tree earlier, hand-poured candles from Dad's old lavender garden, with a note, "For Mom and Dad for quiet nights. Love, Emily." It was gone. Not opened, not displayed, just gone. I reached for my phone, more to ground myself than to check it. My fingers scrolled absently, but my mind snagged on an email from my cousin Sarah, forwarded last week. I'd asked for the gala's address, assuming I'd been accidentally left off the invite list. She'd sent it without question, but the original email didn't include me. My name was added manually, a footnote to a family I was no longer part of. I stared at the screen, my smile locked in place by muscle memory. I hadn't been invited. I wasn't supposed to be here. Then I felt a tug at my sleeve. Lily, Victoria's daughter, looked up at me, her wide eyes framed by curls. "Aunt Emily, is it true you took money from Grandma?" she asked, crumbs falling from the cookie in her hand. My breath caught. "What?" I managed. "Mom said you take credit for stuff you didn't do, but it's okay now." Her voice was soft, innocent, repeating a script she didn't understand. "Who told you that?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Mom," she whispered, "but I'm not supposed to say." Before I could respond, Victoria's voice cut through. "Lily, sweetie, come help with the cookies." Lily scampered off, and Victoria's gaze lingered on me, a half smile that felt like a blade. I leaned back, staring at the fireplace, its flames useless against the cold settling in my chest. This wasn't just exclusion. It was character assassination, woven into whispers, coded in concern, spread even to the kids. I remembered the night I paid Dad's rehab bill, $45,000, 0 cents from my savings, driving from Hartford to sign the forms because he was too ashamed to tell anyone he'd relapsed. He'd said, "Don't tell your mother." I didn't. Victoria posted on Instagram that night, family pulling together in tough times, 100 likes. I got a bank alert for overdraft fees. I'd let it go because family, because harmony, because no one likes the sister who makes a scene. But now, even Lily carried the lie that I was a thief, a liar, an outsider. The dessert plates came out, pecan pie and store-bought apple tarts, dressed up with whipped cream to look homemade. The cinnamon candle in the center flickered, its scent curling like smoke. My stool hadn't moved, still an inch too far from the table, a subtle exile. Victoria tapped her spoon against her glass, the room snapping to attention. "I'd like to say something before we cut the pie," she said, her grin sharp, her eyes locked on me. I stiffened, bracing for another toast about gratitude or family unity. Instead, she delivered the line that shattered the night. "Give back the $100,000, 0 cents, or you'll never see Mom or Dad again." No one moved. Aunt Claire gasped softly. Lily froze, a forkful of pie halfway to her mouth. Ethan's fiancée set her glass down with a clink. I turned to Victoria, searching for a smirk, a hint this was a cruel joke. There was none. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice a whisper. Ethan jumped in, his tone calm but cutting. "You moved $100,000, 0 cents, from Mom's trust last year, claiming it was for Dad's hospice. We saw the statements, Emily. All of us." My hands gripped the table, knuckles white. "You think I stole from her?" I asked, my voice cracking but steady. "No," Victoria said, leaning back. "We're not accusing you. We're demanding you give it back. There's a difference." The air thickened, like a storm cloud had settled over the table. I looked at Mom, desperate for her to meet my eyes, to say something, anything. She didn't. Her napkin was suddenly the most fascinating thing in the room, her fingers folding it with surgical precision. I turned to Dad, but his gaze was fixed on his plate, as if he could will himself invisible. "I used my own savings," I said slowly, each word deliberate. "My money, not the trust's." Victoria didn't flinch. "Then where are the receipts? Why no records? Why does it look like you drained the account the week Dad entered palliative care?" I opened my mouth, then stopped. She was right. There was no paper trail. Dad had called me 3 years ago, his voice thin over the phone. "Emily, I know I don't deserve it, but this trial might buy me a few months." I'd transferred $100,000, 0 cents, from my personal account that night. No questions, no hesitation. He'd begged me not to tell Mom, said it would break her. So I didn't. No witnesses, no documents, just my word. And in this room, my word was worthless. "Wow," I said softly, scanning the faces I'd once trusted. "You planned this?" Ethan shook his head. "We didn't plan anything. We just want the truth." I almost laughed. "The truth," Lily mumbled, her eyes on her plate. "Told you she stole." The words cut deeper than Victoria's accusation, a child's voice echoing a lie she'd been fed. I looked at Mom again, willing her to speak, to say, "This isn't right. Emily would never." She didn't. She folded her napkin again, placed it beside her plate, and that was my answer. My heart didn't break. It burned. I reached for a memory, something solid to anchor me. 3 years ago, when the insurance company denied Dad's last treatment, I'd wired the money without a second thought. He never made it to the trial, but I'd paid anyway, because that's what you do for family. Now that act was a noose they'd tied around my neck, calling it justice. "This isn't about money," I said quietly, my voice steady. "This is about rewriting me." Ethan scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I leaned forward, my eyes locked on Victoria. "You corner me, accuse me in front of everyone, demand ransom to see my own parents, and I'm the dramatic one?" No one answered. The room was a tableau of averted gazes and untouched pie. I stood, pushing my stool back gently, and muttered, "I need air." No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. I walked to the kitchen, the clatter of forks and forced laughter trailing me like a ghost. Leaning against the counter, I gripped my phone, my lifeline to a world that didn't yet hate me. That's when I saw it. Dad's old laptop, still open from when Mom printed the place cards. Minus, I sat down, not to snoop, but because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. The screen glowed, no password. I clicked the email icon, more out of habit than intent, and there it was. A draft titled, "Tomorrow," dated 6 months ago. My hand hovered over the trackpad, my pulse loud in my ears. I clicked. Mom's words filled the screen in Times New Roman, 12-point, her default font. "You paid for everything, Emily. I know that. I'm not blind. I just didn't know how to tell Victoria she's not the golden one. You give with your whole heart. That terrifies me." I read it twice, 3 times, each sentence a fresh wound. She knew. She'd known all along what I'd done, what I'd given up, and she'd sat there tonight, letting Victoria tear me apart, not because she doubted me, but because she didn't want to upset the family's carefully crafted myth. I shut the laptop, the click louder than the laughter from the dining room. Outside, someone was singing Silent Night, off-key. I caught my reflection in the microwave door, lipstick faded, eyes tired. A woman not because I'd changed, but because I finally saw what they saw. A scapegoat, a placeholder, a daughter they only remembered when they needed something. I walked back to the dining room, my coat half-buttoned, my scarf loose around my neck. They were deep into dessert, no one looking up, not even Lily. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Leaving already? I didn't answer right away. I adjusted my scarf, slow and deliberate, then met her eyes. "Tell Mom I found her draft," I said, my voice low but clear. And I walked out, the snow crunching under my boots, the USB drive heavy in my purse. Whatever came next, I was done being quiet. As I drove away, my car fishtailed on the icy road, the brakes sluggish in a way they hadn't been that morning. My heart skipped, but I gripped the wheel, guiding the car to a stop. Something was wrong, deliberately wrong. I didn't know who, but I knew why. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The snow hadn't stopped falling since I left the Greenwich mansion, each flake a silent accusation piling up on my windshield. My car's brakes had faltered on the way out, a sluggish lurch that wasn't mechanical failure, but sabotage. I was sure of it. My hands still trembled as I pulled into the parking lot of my Hartford apartment, the USB drive in my purse feeling heavier than it should. Victoria's voice echoed in my head. "Return the $100,000 0 cents, or you'll never see Mom or Dad again." The words weren't just a threat. They were a declaration of war, one my family had been waging in whispers for years. But I wasn't the same Emily who'd sat quietly on that folding stool 3 nights ago. I'd found Mom's draft email, her confession that she knew I'd paid for everything, yet chose silence to protect Victoria's pedestal. That betrayal cut deeper than any accusation, but it also lit a fire. I wasn't running anymore. I was fighting back. Inside my apartment, the air was stale, the kind of quiet that amplifies your own heartbeat. I dropped my satchel on the kitchen table, the journals I'd made for Mom and Dad spilling out, their leather covers mocking me with their unopened sincerity. I poured a glass of water, not because I was thirsty, but because I needed something to hold. My phone buzzed. "Ethan, can we meet?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. My brother, always Victoria's shadow, had sat there while she branded me a thief. Why now? I typed nothing, letting the message sit unanswered. The silence felt like power, a small rebellion against the family that had rewritten me as the villain. I sank onto the couch, my mind replaying Mom's email. "You give with your whole heart. That terrifies me." Terrified her? I'd spent years filling their gaps. $45,000, 0 cents for Dad's rehab, $30,000, 0 cents for their mortgage, countless late nights balancing their books when Mom forgot the property taxes. I'd never asked for thanks, just a seat at the table. Instead, I got a stool and a lie. My eyes drifted to the hallway closet, a cluttered mess of boxes I'd dragged through 5 moves and 3 promotions. Something pulled me there, a nagging instinct. I started digging, tossing aside old scarves and receipts until my fingers brushed a small silver thumb drive, taped shut with a faded label. Dad's medical records. My breath caught. I hadn't touched it in years, but I remembered every file, every timestamp. I crossed the room, plugged it into my laptop, and waited. The folders loaded, organized with the precision of my old self, the forensic accountant who could untangle $1 million fraud before breakfast. There it was, a PDF dated April 2022, a $100,000 0 cents wire transfer to Greenwich Hospice Trust from my personal checking account, not Mom's trust. Timestamped, verified, final. My heart steadied. This was the noose they'd tried to hang me with, undone by a single document. Another folder, estate communications, held emails from our old family attorney, backups I'd made when Dad was first hospitalized. One attachment stopped me cold, a scanned will from 2021, my name clear as day, listed for 35% of the estate and Dad's old study desk. for the one who remembers. I exhaled, the weight of proof grounding me. Then I pulled the envelope Victoria had given me last week, waving it like it was nothing. Paperwork Mom wants everyone to have. I hadn't looked at it then, too tired of their games. Now I unfolded it. The revised will was sterile, legal jargon in cold black ink. My name was gone. Not a mention, not a trinket, nothing. A line near the end read, "Emily has been provided for outside this will." A lie dressed up in legalese. Deal with it. I'd been erased, replaced by Victoria and Ethan. My hands shook, not from anger but from clarity. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. You're not family anymore. I opened both wills side by side, my accountant's eye scanning for discrepancies. It took a moment, but there it was. Mom's signature on the new will. The cursive was off, the M slanting backward, lacking its usual flourish. I grabbed a birthday card from the fridge, Mom's handwriting unmistakable. The signatures didn't match, not even close. My pulse quickened, not with fear but with purpose. They'd forged her signature. They thought they could bury me, but they forgot who I was. I'd spent 2 decades untangling financial knots, spotting forgeries, building audit trails that held up in federal court. They'd picked the wrong sister. That night I barely slept, my laptop glowing as I dragged files into a new folder labeled Redemption. Invoices, emails, transfer logs, each piece a brick in the wall I was building. By dawn my coffee was cold, but my resolve was molten. I texted Rachel, a compliance attorney I'd worked with on a fraud case years ago. "Hey, hypothetical question, got something for you?" Her reply was instant. "Coffee or war room?" I smiled. "Both." "I'll bring the files." This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth, about pulling their lies into the light. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door, scrawled in black ink. "Drop it, or you'll regret it." My stomach twisted, but I didn't flinch. I photographed it, added it to my folder, and checked the hallway security camera. The footage was grainy, but a hooded figure lingered at 2 a.m., too tall to be Victoria, too deliberate to be random. Ethan? Someone hired? I didn't know, but the threat was real. I locked the door, my heart pounding, and kept working. Days later, my office was broken into. I arrived at my firm's Hartford office, a glass tower that screamed corporate ambition, to find my desk ransacked. Files on the family's finances, backup copies I'd kept for tax season, were gone. The security guard shrugged, said the cameras had glitched. I didn't buy it. Someone was trying to scare me silent, but they didn't know silence was no longer my language. I rebuilt the files from cloud backups, my fingers flying over the keyboard, each click a defiance. The following week I was followed. I'd met Rachel at her office in New Haven, handing over copies of the forged will and bank records. Driving back, an unmarked black sedan trailed me. Too close, too consistent. I took a detour through a quiet suburb, my heart in my throat as the car matched every turn. I pulled into a gas station, pretending to refuel, and called Rachel. "I'm being tailed," I said, my voice low. "Get plates if you can," she replied, "and don't go home." I snapped a photo, blurry but enough, and sent it to her. The car vanished, but the message lingered. "We're watching." Christmas Round 2 was Victoria's idea, a text from Ethan framing it as a chance to smooth things over. Just family, no drama. I didn't believe it, but I went. The Greenwich mansion looked the same, snow-dusted, glowing, perfect. My seat was a proper chair this time, but still no place card. Victoria greeted me, her smile all teeth. "Glad you made it, Em. We just want peace." I nodded, setting my phone on the table, face down. "I brought something just in case the truth wants to join us." Ethan shifted in the corner. Mom fussed with a candle and the air tightened. Dinner was a farce. Small talk about the Patriots season and Claire's yoga retreat, no one meeting my eyes for long. Even Lily, usually curious, stared at her plate. I waited until coffee was served, the room lulled into a false calm. Then I tapped play. The housekeeper's voice, Maribel, filled the silence, recorded years ago when she'd worked for us. Victoria told me not to dust the side drawer. That's where she kept the backup will. Said she'd clean it up before anyone noticed. Mom's spoon clattered into her cup. Victoria's smile vanished. I played the second clip. Victoria's laugh from a backyard barbecue, wine loosening her tongue. Emily's too quiet to fight back. She'll cry and disappear. Once it's in writing, it's real. No one checks signatures. The room was a graveyard. I slid a sealed envelope across the table. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is a report for the state attorney's office. Financial records, forgery assessments, witness statements. You have until New Year's." Mom's eyes welled, but she said nothing. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. I stood, adjusted my coat, and walked out, the snow heavier now, each step a promise to myself. No more shadows. 3 days later, my phone rang at 6:11 a.m. Human Resources. "Emily, a recording surfaced overnight. It's you allegedly admitting to forging estate documents. Legal's reviewing it. We need you in today." My thumb shook as I opened the link they sent. My voice spliced together, saying words I'd never spoken, covering trails, forging language. They'll believe me anyway. It was precise, deliberate, a digital dagger. I knew instantly. Victoria. I sat in my car outside the office, gripping the steering wheel, the old fear creeping in. What if they believed her? I'd spent years being the good sister, swallowing slights to keep peace. Now my silence was a weapon in her hands. I walked into the office, head high, voice low. "It's fake, and I can prove it." Legal pulled in the compliance team, and I handed over my files. Forensics took over. That night, Ethan showed up at my door, looking like he hadn't slept in days, his hoodie soaked from the rain. "I can't do this anymore," he said, holding out a thumb drive. Victoria used editing software. "It's your voice from Dad's bedside recordings. She spliced it." I stared at him, my hand still. "You thought she'd just rant and move on?" I asked. He looked at the floor. "Is it too late to fix it?" "No," I said, "but you won't fix it." I shut the door. I sent everything. Ethan's drive, my files, every email and invoice to the firm's legal team, the state attorney, and a lawyer across from Victoria's PR agency. The verification came fast. Audio tampering, document falsification, digital breadcrumbs leading to Victoria's user ID. My firm cleared me, no suspension, just quiet vindication. The lawyer, an old ally, ensured the DA's copy was sealed, metadata certified. I didn't need headlines, I needed the truth on record. The next evening, I drove to the mansion one last time. The porch light glowed, the living room amber through the blinds. Mom was in the kitchen, washing a delicate glass. She opened the door after 2 knocks, her eyes tired but guarded. I stepped inside, just far enough to reach the console table. From my pocket, I pulled a monogrammed scarf, pale blue, embroidered with an E, the one she'd tucked into her purse despite claiming she kept nothing sentimental. I laid it on the table, atop a childhood photo of us. "You kept this," I said. "I saw it." She didn't deny it. "You don't have to say anything," I continued. "You already did." I turned and left, the snow muffling my steps. The next morning, news broke. An internal memo at Victoria's firm announced her suspension for digital fraud. By noon, it leaked. By nightfall, she was fired. No press release, just silence. I didn't raise my voice once. A month later, I sat on my porch with Lily, now living with me part-time since Mom stepped back and Ethan fled to Maine. She sketched on an old notebook, her feet swinging. "Why don't we go to Grandma's anymore?" she asked, her voice soft. "Some places stop being home," I said, "even if your name's on the mailbox." She nodded, scribbling a line. "I like it here better." I smiled, the kind that heals from the inside. Me too. My firm promoted me to lead a women's financial empowerment program, helping those stripped of inheritance or dignity by families who used love as leverage. Each class began with a question. What's the first thing someone took from you? Someone always cried, not from sadness, but from realizing they weren't alone. I didn't need applause. I needed to show up. Dorian sent a voicemail. "I don't expect forgiveness, but thank you for not dragging me down with her." I saved it not for him, but for me. A reminder that truth doesn't need to roar. It just needs to be steady. The silence on my porch wasn't empty anymore. I'd stopped waiting for apologies or rewritten wills. In their absence, I found peace. The kind that doesn't need permission. The kind that lets you walk forward lighter. Some things are meant to be left behind, and sometimes the only family that matters is the one who never asked you to disappear.